Welcome back to the Oasis Focus and Finance show. Should you wish to contact us or ask any questions, our email address, SMS line will be on the screen. We now go back to this segment of the show with Oasis investment analysts Hassan Motala and Isma-el Ebrahim, in which we have a look at financial markets. Hassan, when you are investing, obviously you look at global themes and trends, don't you? How do you do this?
Sure. I think, Shafiq, when you look at the world today, comparing it to 100 years ago, even maybe comparing it to 50 years ago, it's very different world that we're living in today. I mean, just think about it, the world that we're living in continues to evolve and change. And for example, I'll use two examples of two key themes that you look at. Technology, and one which is also coming up increasingly, aging population. Now, technology, if you look at it, I mean, it continues to evolve. If you look at 50 years back, 20 years back, 10 years back, there's continuous change that's taking place in technology. And I'm not just talking about, devices and the like. It impacts us in many parts of our lives. Be it healthcare, be it education, be it, our appliances and the like. Technology affects us in every aspect. And that continues. But it's a theme which you can benefit from as an investor. Now think about it. If you look at technology from an investment perspective, there's significant opportunities, but there's also potentials where you can destroy and lose value. Not too long ago, Shafiq, you obviously being in the journalist industry, you would know 20, 30 years back, you had your faithful typewriter, you were typing up a story and the like, you worked on your typewriter. Today, typewriters don't exist. Everything is on the PC or the laptop. But you know what? Even the PC these days, guys are saying, well, we're now moving either to the tablet or you got your mobile devices that you work off. Things continue to evolve and change. Technology presents massive opportunities. Now, very importantly as well, I'll use one example of where we're seeing massive opportunities longer term. For example, the smartphone, your tablets. Everyone is using it. I mean, these days you're getting 2- and 3-year-old kids that can actually go through the tablet and go and see this cartoon and the like. They're so familiar with these devices because they've become so user-friendly. But very importantly, I'm not talking about the opportunities with the device itself. It's the data that's used, that the device is using, is where there's massive opportunity. Think about it. Smartphones these days, whether we want to know what the weather is, whether we want to know what the latest sports news is, or just Google something or see something on this here, we are using data. And who's the providers of this data? It's the telecom companies that are providing you with this data. Be it when you're in your home using your Wi-Fi or using your mobile device, you're using mobile data, increasingly you're using data. And the expectations are, 5 years ago data usage was relatively small. Today, it's grown several fold from what it was 5 years ago. And as we move into the future, 5, 10 years out, I'm not talking only about South Africa, Africa, the developed world, the emerging world, increasingly as people use more and more devices that will utilize data usage will continue to grow manyfold in the longer term. That presents huge opportunities for growth for the telecom companies as they supply the data over the longer term. That's a secular trend where you're seeing data usage over the longer term, not only in the developed world, but the emerging world where there'll be massive growth and usage for that. And therefore companies that stand to benefit, we look to invest in those type of companies.
Isma-el, Hassan has mentioned the factor of aging populations. Some populations are getting very old and some are very young. How does this impact upon the investment and financial landscape?
Look, it's certainly a theme that we like, something that we've positioned ourselves towards, and I'll talk you through it. If we look at the developed world, we're talking Japan, Germany, the US, those markets are experiencing populations that are the greater proportion of that population is aging, above 65 years old. If we look at the USA, let's isolate the USA, it's the biggest, of those three nations, it's got the biggest population. The general population, total population, is growing at 1%. The proportion of the population older than 65 years old is growing at 4%. So it's growing 4 times faster. Now, that is as a result of a number of things. If we look at it, the baby boomers are now of that age, 65 years and older. So that generation is really pumping up the growth from that point of view. Then you also have the medical advances, which is increasing life expectancy. 45% less people smoke compared to what they used to do years ago. So over the next 15 years, we believe that the population of the US, the proportion that is older than 65, will continue to grow much faster relative to the younger proportion of the population. And we positioned ourselves favorably for that. We've identified attractive, high-quality companies with strong balance sheets that have dominant market positions in the likes of pharmaceutical, medical, as well as your real estate. Those companies that care for the elderly people. You know, as Muslims, it's also important for us to respect and care for our elders. And, and we think it's important to be able to care for that segment of the population. Not to just forget about them, like Hassan talked about the typewriter. They're not your old obsolete typewriter. We need to care for our elders, and we position ourselves accordingly as that growth continues to come through over the next 15 years. At this point in time, 14% of the population, that's 43 million people in the US, are 65 years and older. That will grow to 73 million. That's an additional 30 million over the next 15 years. So that will really prop up the growth. We talked about Pallinghurst earlier and volume growth, and this is volume growth in another sector.
Hassan, Isma-el mentioned something previously in the program, something called stock picking. How do you do this? I mean, is it a question of looking at a high-quality company and a low-quality company? How do you make the distinction?
Sure. I think obviously, Isma-el went through an example of Pallinghurst. He went through, key aspects or key fundamentals that we look at, the assets, the cash flows, the management, looking at those issues. And, we look at it in companies both from a South African and a global perspective. If you look at our portfolios, we're investing money in the South African markets, but also, for example, in your balance funds, where you've got exposure towards high quality companies from a global perspective. Early on, I highlighted, the telecom sector. Now, telecom sector, as an example, people may be familiar with the likes of a Vodacom and MTN. But in the US, for example, we invested in US telco companies such as Verizon and AT&T. These are high quality global companies that are at the forefront in terms of telecommunications within the US markets. Now, we're investing in those companies because they're market leaders, they generate massive amounts of cash flow, and very importantly, they give us as shareholders fantastic dividends. They distribute regularly to us sustainably. We can rely on getting those dividends sustainably for the future. And that's important, where stock picking is focusing on the fundamentals, focusing on companies where that they're businesses. We're investing in companies. And we want to make sure that that company that we're investing in, because through its market leadership, through its profit leadership, and the fact that it has these strong balance sheets, will be here not only tomorrow, but 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line. These are companies that will continue to sustain themselves and be at the forefront of their respective industries.
Now, Hassan, we get a question, I think they call it positioning. How does a company like Oasis position itself in terms of its clients and its investments in everything we've been discussing?
Sure. Shafiq, at the end of the day, the heart of our philosophy and what we focus on is to protect and grow the real wealth of our clients. That is foremost in our minds. If you look at since 1997, we've experienced various crises globally. You've had the Asian crisis, you've had the dot-com bubble, and more recently we had the global financial crisis. But throughout those periods, our focus has been to make sure that those crises present opportunities, and we take advantage of that and look at investing in high quality companies that come under pressure during those crises. Now, in the environment that we're talking about, where you get this rising interest rates, we are invested in high quality companies that have strong balance sheets. We stressed that example Isma-el talked about, where a geared company would face massive pressure during this tough environment. We invested in companies that have got the balance sheets that in a rising interest rate environment, they will outperform. They will sustain themselves, and they will continue to be market leaders. I think that just to end off on a point, the Crescent Equity Fund, flagship fund of ours, been around since 1998, highlighting the point that through those crises, And how it sustained itself is because of the investments and how the portfolios were made up has delivered that significant real returns to clients over the longer term. Investing in a portfolio that is focused on quality, cognizant of value, and very importantly, is doing it at relatively low risk comparing it to the market.
That performance of the Crescent Equity Fund, as indicated, it's our flagship fund. That performance is testament to a consistent philosophy that we've applied since our inception. This philosophy that we've applied has stood the test of time. It's got the track record. The track record speaks for itself. It's got the performance, and that's something we've delivered on our objective to protect and grow the real wealth of our clients, as Hassan indicated. And alhamdulillah, we've done that, and inshallah we'll continue to do that in the coming years and over the long term.
And to Isma-el and Hassan and Motala, shukran. Thank you for your contribution to this segment of the show. You are watching the Oasis Focus and Finance show. We have been discussing financial markets with our special guests. We'll be back after this.